Welcome to Study Hall, where we like to really get our hands dirty with some interesting sources, dive deep into a topic.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to be looking at America's strategy for leading the world in AI.
Yeah.
Which is something that's been in the news a lot recently.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic.
And we've got two really interesting sources to help us unpack this.
Okay, cool.
So we have an executive order signed just this week.
Wow.
As well as an analysis of that very order, breaking down some of the potential pros and cons. So are you ready to jump into this?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So the language in the executive order is very, very clear.
Okay.
It's stating that the U.S. aims to sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance.
Mm-hmm.
And it lists the core motivations for this as being national security, economic competitiveness, and promoting what they call human flourishing.
Right. And it's interesting to see this new executive order coming out just this week, sort of setting a new direction for American AI.
Right. And this is actually replacing a previous executive order.
Oh, okay.
That focused on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI development. So there seems to have been a pretty significant shift to really accelerating progress and removing any obstacles that might hinder American innovation.
That's a big change.
Yeah.
And it definitely raises a number of questions, like what are the implications of, prioritizing speed over existing safeguards? Could this approach lead to some unintended consequences down the line?
And these are all things that this document that we have that kind of breaks down the pros and cons really tries to look at very carefully.
Okay.
So one of the arguments that they have in favor of this new executive order is that it really emphasizes leveraging the private sector to drive innovation.
Okay.
So the idea being, if we remove regulations and really empower businesses, then we could just unleash the full potential of American ingenuity.
I see. So it's that classic kind of free market argument, and there's definitely a historical precedent for that in other technological fields.
Right.
But when it comes to something like AI, which is so powerful and potentially disruptive, is a purely market-driven approach enough?
And that's where some of the cons that they list in this document come in.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that they say is that while removing barriers can definitely boost innovation, it can also create these potential oversight gaps.
I see.
So if we're just totally focused on speed and competition, then who's really making sure that we're thinking about ethics?
Right. It's like building a race car without brakes. You might get incredible speed, but at what cost? And what happens if you can't control the direction?
Exactly. And the executive order also mentions that they want to create this comprehensive AI action plan in just 180 days.
Oh, wow. So they're really trying to hit the ground running.
Yeah, like a ridiculously short time frame. And so some critics are worried that that's going to lead to rushed decisions and not enough attention to detail.
Well, and developing a robust AI strategy, that requires, careful consideration of all the broader implications, not just the technology.
Right.
So to try and do all of that in 6 months seems like it could be a recipe for potential oversights.
And then they also don't really address the potential strain on resources.
Oh, right, because the order mentions providing access to computing resources and data, which of course is essential for AI development. But it doesn't specify where those resources are going to come from or how they'll be allocated.
Exactly. So will we be taking away from other important areas?
Yeah. Are there actually enough resources to support this very ambitious plan? These are all details that need to be fleshed out.
Now, there's a very interesting little detail in here.
Okay.
Where the executive order actually mentions a legal definition of AI.
Oh, interesting.
And it specifically references this code.
Okay.
15 USC 94013.
So essentially what that section of the U.S. Code is saying is that AI is any system that can perform tasks that usually require human intelligence, things like learning, problem solving, decision-making, that kind of thing. So it seems like they're trying to be very precise about what exactly falls under the scope of this executive order.
It seems like they're laying the groundwork for potential legal and regulatory frameworks.
Right. So this is not just about technology. This is a legal and a political discussion as well.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to this core question of balance.
Right.
How do we balance this need for rapid progress in the AI field with the equally important need for, thoughtful consideration of all of the broader implications?
And this document about the pros and cons really tries to highlight this.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, they're saying AI has the potential to drive economic growth.
Of course.
enhance national security, improve our lives in countless ways.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, they're saying, hold on.
Right.
You know?
You can't just rush into this.
We can't just rush headlong into this new frontier without thinking about safeguards.
Right. It's a classic dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something that we're going to have to navigate very carefully as AI continues to evolve.
Yeah. And it's not about picking one side or the other.
Right.
It's about how can we integrate.
Yeah. How can we integrate these perspectives into a cohesive and responsible strategy?
And that's what this executive order seems to be trying to articulate. It's saying America wants to be a leader in AI, but it's also saying we need to have a larger conversation.
Yes. We need to recognize that we're all stakeholders in this, in shaping the future of this really powerful technology.
Okay, so to sum up what we've talked about in this first little section, we have this new executive order.
Brand new.
That prioritizes American leadership in AI, and it really signals a shift from that previous focus on safe and trustworthy development to much more rapid innovation.
Right.
And so, of course, with that comes a whole set of potential benefits and risks that we need to very carefully consider. Exactly. And now to really understand the implications of this executive order, I think we need to dive a little deeper into the specifics of this AI action plan that it mandates.
Right.
Who is going to be responsible for crafting this plan? What are the key priorities? How are they going to address the concerns that have been raised by critics?
Right.
These are all questions that I think we should explore in the next segment.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's pick up right where we left off and talk about this 180-day deadline.
Yeah, 180 days.
For this comprehensive AI action plan.
It just seems so fast to completely revamp America's approach to AI.
Yeah, it's like a sprint rather than a marathon.
And I'm wondering, does that urgency come from just wanting to stay ahead of other countries?
It's probably a few things, but I think national security concerns are definitely front and center. I mean, remember, the executive order very clearly mentions national security as like a key driver for making AI development go faster.
Right.
AI could completely change things when it comes to defense and intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense that the U.S. government wants to be a leader in those areas.
Right. But then it comes back to that question of balance.
Yeah.
Can we really prioritize speed and national security without thinking about the risks?
Exactly. Right. And the document that breaks down the pros and cons really hits on that tension between innovation and oversight. I mean, obviously, removing regulations can help things move faster.
Right, yeah.
But then who's making sure that everything is being done responsibly?
Exactly. And they also talk about how much this executive order relies on the private sector to drive AI development.
Which is like a very classic American approach,
Totally.
Using the free market to innovate.
Yeah, but is that always the best way to make sure that something as powerful as AI is actually benefiting the public?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
I mean, companies want to make money. And while that can lead to amazing new things, it can also mean that they're not always thinking about what's best for everyone. So then who is making sure that the public is protected when it's companies who are really in charge of developing and using AI?
And in the cons list, they specifically mention this potential for like an AI arms race.
AI arms race.
Yeah, where companies are just focused on getting their products out there first without thinking about safety or ethics.
Just to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen that in other industries where competition leads to cutting corners.
Yeah.
And with something as powerful as AI, the stakes are so much higher.
So much higher.
Yeah.
How do we avoid that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer, but I think we need more ways to make sure that AI is being developed responsibly.
Okay, so like what does that look like?
Well, it could be things like setting very clear rules for AI development, or maybe creating independent groups to keep an eye on the industry, or even working with other countries to make sure that everyone agrees on what's ethical.
That makes sense, especially since AI research and development is happening all over the world.
Exactly. It's a global issue.
Right.
And we're not going to solve it if each country is just doing its own thing.
It seems like this executive order is really focused on America being number one.
Yeah, and the cons document points out that focusing only on American leadership might actually be a bad thing.
Okay, how so?
Well, it could mean that we're not including other important people in the conversation, like international partners or groups who are working on ethical AI.
So it's like we need to think about what's best for America, but also what's best for the world.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
Okay, so let's talk about the people who are actually going to be creating this AI action plan.
Okay.
The executive order mentions a bunch of people in government, the assistant to the president for science and technology, the special advisor for AI and crypto, national security advisors, and then economic and policy advisors.
So it sounds like they're trying to cover all the bases.
Yeah.
Bringing together experts from a lot of different fields.
It does, but I also wonder about the people who aren't mentioned.
Like, oh.
Like, we're the ethics experts.
Right.
The human rights folks. The people who are thinking about the social impact of AI.
And the comms document mentions that, too, that there might be some bias in who's on this team.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone on the team has the same background and the same point of view, then they might miss some important things.
Yeah, like we need to make sure that this plan is taking all perspectives into account.
Exactly.
It can't just be about technological advancement.
It has to be about ethics and social impact, too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so remember that part in the executive order?
Yeah.
Where they mentioned a legal definition of AI, and they specifically referenced this code?
Right. 15 USC 94013.
Yes, so what does that actually say?
Well, basically it says that AI is any machine-based system that can do things that humans usually do.
Like what kinds of things?
It's like learning...
problem-solving, decision-making.
So it's a pretty broad definition.
Yeah, it covers a lot of different technologies, from really simple systems to very complex algorithms.
So I'm wondering how this executive order is going to affect all those different types of AI.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. Will the focus on being fast and innovative apply to everything equally?
I don't think so.
Or will they treat different types of AI differently?
I mean, an AI that plays chess is very different from an AI that controls weapons.
Right.
So the amount of oversight and regulation should probably depend on how risky the AI is.
And how do they determine how risky something is?
Well, that's something they'll have to figure out.
Okay.
It requires really understanding what AI can do and how it might be used.
Yeah. And there's this other phrase in the executive order that's been getting a lot of attention.
What's that?
It's the part about developing AI systems that are free from ideological bias. Or engineered social agendas.
That's tricky.
Right. I mean, who gets to decide what's bias?
Right. What even is bias?
Exactly. And it reminds us that technology isn't neutral.
Right.
It reflects the values of the people who create it.
And when we're talking about AI, those values can have a huge impact.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
On how these systems work and how they're used.
Exactly.
So can we even make an AI system that's completely free from bias?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, if humans are building them and humans have biases, how can the AI be completely unbiased?
Right. And that's why I think it's so important to have transparency and accountability.
Totally. We need to know how these systems are making decisions, what information they're using, and what biases might be built in.
And that brings us back to having diverse perspectives.
Right. We need people from all different backgrounds and with all different points of view involved in creating and overseeing AI.
Otherwise, we're going to end up with systems that only reflect the values of a very small group of people. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the potential risks of AI.
We have.
But let's not forget about all the good things.
Yeah, that's important too.
That it could do.
It's easy to get caught up in the scary stuff.
Right.
But AI also has the potential to make the world a much better place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how could AI potentially benefit people?
Well, in healthcare, for example, AI could help doctors create personalized treatments or diagnose diseases earlier.
That would be amazing.
It could even help us discover new drugs.
Wow.
Imagine finding cures for diseases like cancer.
Or Alzheimer's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in education, AI could make learning more personalized.
For each student is getting exactly what they need.
Yeah, and it could give students feedback in real time. Right. Imagine being able to adjust your teaching based on how each student is learning.
That's incredible.
And then there's scientific research.
Yeah, AI can analyze huge amounts of data way faster than humans can.
Right. It can find patterns and make discoveries that we would never be able to see on our own.
Like what?
Well, for example, AI is already being used to study climate change.
Oh, wow.
And to develop new sources of energy.
That's amazing.
Some people are even using AI to search for aliens.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
So it seems like AI could change almost every part of our lives.
It really could.
From the everyday stuff to the really big, important things.
And as we get more and more used to these changes,
Right.
we need to be careful and make sure that we're using AI for good.
Right. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how this new executive order might affect all the AI work that's already happening.
Okay.
So remember, it says they're going to review all the programs
Right.
that were started under the old executive order.
Yeah, the one about safe and trustworthy AI.
Exactly. And they're going to see if those programs are still in line with this new focus on speed and innovation. So what does that mean for those programs?
Well, I mean, some of them might get scaled back.
Like they'll get less money?
Yeah. Or they could even be completely eliminated if they're not seen as a priority anymore.
So imagine a group of researchers who are working on making sure that AI algorithms are fair and transparent, and then suddenly their funding gets cut.
Oh, wow.
Because their work isn't seen as aligned with this new push for innovation.
Right.
Yeah. And the cons document talks about how disruptive that could be.
Yeah. I mean, if the government keeps changing its priorities, it's going to be hard for researchers to do their best work.
Right. They need to know what the goals are.
Exactly.
And they need to have some stability.
Otherwise, it's just chaos.
And so it seems like finding that balance between keeping things going and making changes is going to be really important.
It's not about just forgetting everything that's been done before. It's about building on that progress and adapting to new challenges.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come back to this idea of innovation versus oversight.
Okay.
Because we've talked about how deregulation could lead to less oversight. And the cons document really emphasizes this risk of creating like a Wild West situation.
Oh, Wild West.
Yeah, where everyone's just doing whatever they want.
Oh, wow.
And no one's really thinking about the ethical implications.
Yeah, and they specifically say that could happen if we focus too much on being the leader in AI.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of building a really powerful engine, but not putting in any safety features. Like, you might get a lot of speed and power, but you also increase the risk of something really bad happening.
And with AI, that something bad could be really bad.
It could affect our privacy, our economy, national security, even global peace.
I mean, the stakes are incredibly high.
So how do we encourage innovation without letting things get out of control?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, is there like a magic solution?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I think it's going to take a lot of different things working together.
Like what?
Well, for one, we need clear rules for AI development.
Okay.
And we need people to enforce those rules.
Right.
We also need to make sure that everyone who's working on AI understands the ethical implications.
This is like training and education.
Exactly. And we need to be able to see what's going on inside these AI systems.
Transparency.
Yeah. And if something goes wrong, someone needs to be held accountable.
Okay. And then internationally?
We need to work with other countries to create global standards for AI.
So it's not just every country for themselves.
Exactly. It has to be a collaborative effort.
But all of that raises even more questions.
It does.
Like, what should those rules actually say?
Yeah.
Who should enforce them? How much regulation is too much?
These are really difficult questions, and there aren't easy answers.
Right.
But I think the first step is admitting that we need to find a balance.
Right.
We can't just focus on the good stuff or the bad stuff.
Right.
We have to consider both.
And it seems like the executive order does acknowledge that.
Yeah, in a way.
Because it talks about AI systems that are aligned with American values.
Right.
And that promote human flourishing.
But that language is also pretty vague.
Right. Like, it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But we need more specifics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's saying we're going to build a house.
Yeah.
But not deciding on the blueprints or the materials.
Right.
It's a good idea, but the details matter.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot in this segment.
We have.
We've talked about how much control the government should have over AI development.
Yeah.
How this new executive order might affect existing AI projects and the really important need to find a balance between all the amazing things AI could do and the potential dangers.
It's a really exciting time, but also a little bit scary. We're just at the beginning of this AI revolution, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, what are some of the key things they should be thinking about?
Well, first, I think it's really important to realize that AI isn't just something from science fiction. It's already here.
It's happening now.
Yeah, it's changing the world around us.
Right.
And it's only going to get more powerful.
So we need to pay attention.
Yes. And we need to understand how it might affect our lives.
What else?
We also need to be having these conversations
Yeah.
about the ethics of AI, who benefits, who might be left behind. How do we make sure that AI is used for good?
Right.
These are big questions.
Huge questions.
And we need to be talking about them.
Yeah.
And finally, I think it's important to remember that the future of AI isn't set in stone.
Okay.
We still have a chance to shape it
Right.
by staying informed, by talking to each other, and by demanding that AI is developed responsibly.
I can make sure that AI benefits everyone.
Exactly.
Well said.
Thank you.
That's a great place to wrap things up.
Yeah.
This has been a really fascinating dive
It has.
into this executive order and the potential implications of AI.
Yeah. We've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more to learn.
But hopefully this has given our listeners some things to think about.
Yeah, keep learning, keep asking questions.
Absolutely.
The future of AI is in our hands.
It really is.
And we need to make sure that we're using it wisely.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time. So we've talked a lot about, all the potential benefits of AI, all the risks.
Yeah.
But I think it would be helpful to bring it down to a more personal level.
I agree. It's easy to get lost in all the technical details.
Right.
But ultimately, AI is going to affect all of our lives.
Yeah, in very real ways.
So how is this going to affect you, the listener?
Right.
Well, it depends on what you do for work,
Right.
what you're interested in. But it's safe to say AI is going to touch almost every part of our lives in the next few years.
So let's say you work in healthcare
Okay.
or finance or manufacturing. You're probably going to see AI being used more and more.
Right, for things like automating tasks,
Yeah.
improving efficiency, maybe even creating new jobs.
On the other hand,
Yeah.
if your job involves a lot of repetitive tasks,
Mm-hmm.
things that could be easily automated,
Yeah.
then you might face some challenges.
Yeah, as AI systems become more advanced, it's important to think about how you can adapt.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
And even beyond work, AI is going to affect our everyday lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about personalized recommendations on streaming services,
Yeah.
social media,
Uh-huh.
smart home devices that can predict what you need. It's crazy.
And self-driving cars are going to change how we get around.
Right. Completely change transportation.
Yeah, and urban planning.
Yeah. This is really a transformative technology.
It is.
And we need to stay informed
Yeah.
and be part of the conversation.
We have a responsibility to make sure that AI is used for good.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that theme of balance that we've been talking about.
Right.
We need to balance innovation with responsibility,
Yeah.
national leadership with global cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of AI with potential risks.
It's not going to be easy.
Not at all.
But it's so
We
important.
want to make sure that AI makes our lives better.
Yeah, not worse.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into America's AI strategy,
Yeah.
what are the key things that our listeners should remember?
Well, first, AI is not something that's going to happen in the future.
Right.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
We need to be paying attention.
And understanding how it might affect us.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think it's really important to talk about the ethics of AI.
Yeah.
Who's benefiting from these technologies?
Mm-hmm.
Who might be left behind?
Right.
How do we make sure that AI reflects our values?
Really important questions.
They are.
And lastly,
We need to remember that we have a say in how this all plays out.
the future of AI is not set in stone.
Exactly. We can help shape it.
By staying informed, by talking to each other,
Yeah.
by demanding that AI is developed responsibly.
We can make sure that AI benefits everyone.
Absolutely well said. That's a great place to end our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, but there's still so much more to explore.
Right. Keep learning. Keep asking questions.
The future of AI is in our hands.
And it's up to all of us to use it wisely.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.